In this video, I'd like to demonstrate the use of text function to solve practical problems. So imagine that you brought in some text from some database somewhere, and it had what appears to be a product ID. Maybe I'll go down this one since it's easier to read. A product ID followed by a product description followed by a price. And you'd like to get that separated out into different columns. So there are probably several ways that you could do that, but I'm going to teach you some techniques related to particular functions that I think you should know. So first off, let's look at what we have here. So I'll look at length of this first cell, and it shows that I have 52 characters. And just for giggles, let's go and look at this next one down here, and it's 34 characters. Okay, so they're certainly of different length. Now, one of the things I happen to know about this is if I click in here, there are some spaces there in the end, so that's not good. That's going to be dirty data. So we want to get rid of that for sure. So let's first off get rid of that. And so if we were doing trim mean, that would be related to a column of numbers, but we're not doing that. So trim is actually what we use on text. So I'm going to trim that and see what happens in terms of its length. If I look at the length that's there in B19, we've now lost 2 characters, meaning we lost 2 characters that were on the end that weren't needed. Now let's progress to pull out the product ID. Now if the product ID were a variable length, then we might do something like use a function that would allow us, and you could just Google this and you'd find it real quick, find a function that allows us to find the location or the index value of the first space, but we're not going to do that. In this case, we're lucky that all of these product IDs have the same length, and if I were to count that very carefully, it happens to be 12. So to extract the portion of the text that is the product ID, I can go equals left and click on the text, so cell B19, 12, and now I have that. Another thing I can do is I can use the right function to extract the price. Now again, we have a problem if the price is of variable length. But in this case, they all happen to be 6 characters long, so we're lucky. So we'll just go with that for today, and we'll say equals right, and click on that, and we want to grab 6 characters. Alright, so let me go ahead and cascade this on down. Now I happen to know at a glance that since this is aligned to the left rather than the right, that it's treating it as text currently. And so if I wanted to do something like equals sum of this, that's not going to work. You can't sum up text. So one thing I could do is I could put in value to fix this. So if I typed in VALUE, that would make it so it's being treated like a number, and then it would sum up nicely. I'm going to come back and do that later though, because right now that's actually going to change how long the length function thinks this particular text is, and I don't want to mess with that just yet. So we'll leave it as text for the moment. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to extract the product description. Now it's sandwiched in between there, so we have there's something on the left and something on the right, and it would be nice if we could use maybe the mid function, and with the mid function, well, we'll see what happens. Equals mid, and it says, okay, what text do you want to use? Okay, right there. And where do you want to start? I'm like, well, there's a couple different ways I could figure that out, but I know that that it happens to start around character 13. Alright, so I'm good. Actually, not character 13. It actually starts on character 14 because there's the 12 characters of text plus a space, and then the next location is 14. So I know in every single case, it looks like just eyeballing it, that I want to start in character 14 of the text. And then the next one says, how many characters out do I want to go? And in this point I say, uh-oh, we've got a problem. Where do I go from there? Because they're all different length, and there's not an immediate answer. So I'm just going to type in an arbitrary number right now for a moment. Let's just say I'll go 10 characters, and I'll leave it alone. And then I'll talk about how we actually address this problem for real. Okay, so that pulled out just the word controller. All right, let's look down here to how we might think about this problem. So here's all of the text that we had there, and it happens to be that it's 50 characters long, and we figured that out before. Okay, so if we want to know how many characters we should go from space 12 out, well, one way we might think about doing that is say, okay, we're starting right there, in this case character 14, and we want to go out a certain number of characters. Well, one way we could do that is we could say, well, we want to go, well, out maybe it's not 50 characters, it's certainly 50 characters less 12 characters, because we're already, well, actually in this case 14 characters, because we're already 14 characters in. So if we went 50 character, the length of this, if we went the length of this string starting here less 14 characters, that would take us all the way to the very end. So 50 characters total minus the first 14, that would give us all this space right there. The other thing that we don't want then is the text on the end, which happens to be 6 characters long. Well, it's actually more than 6. It's actually 6 characters plus 1, because there's a space there. But this kind of gives us the intuition that if we took 50 and we took away the length of the thing in the beginning plus the space plus the thing at the end plus a space, then we're going to get how far out we should actually go. And so that's how we're going to do it. All right, so, and I might mess up, but I'll adjust it. It's okay to do that. So I'm going to go out 50 characters. So first I want to actually combine a couple functions. So I'm going to say I want to get the length of this entire thing, and length of this entire thing, and well, let's just see what happens if I do that from 14 to the very end. Okay, well that's and it actually, that 50 characters, actually that goes well beyond into nothingness. That doesn't really exist. All right, so let's take off. We don't need the length of this part at the beginning, so we'll take that off. Oh, now we're getting closer. We still have that number there from the end of it, so let's also not go out the number of characters that are on the end. So we'll go the length of the price. Okay, we're getting awfully close because it's still capturing the 3, and why is that? That clearly is getting, it didn't get the decimal point, so I'm 2 characters over right now. Why is that? Well, it's because we've picked up 2 spaces in there. So because we calculated the length of each of these fields, not including the space, so I'm just going to say, just kind of knowing that, say minus 2 more. Alright, so with that considered, I now have something perfectly done. Now let me go back and fix this. If I now change this to a number and change it to value, it's going to mess up what happened. And I'll put that all the way on down. Oops. Okay, now I'm picking up some extra characters, and it looks like I've got maybe as much as 3 extra characters on the end. And why is that? Well, I'm just using intuition here, but it appears that when it does the value of this, that it's only counting 3 characters and not 6. So let me go like that, and sure enough, it's really only counting the thing before the zeros. I bet you if I put something else in there like a 1, it would probably be different, but I'd have to go all the way over to here to test that. Okay, so I put a 1 in there, and now it's counting the decimal point plus the 1. So all the zeros are being discounted in terms of it looking at the value of that. Alright, so now it's too long if I use the value function. So I'm getting too much. So let me just take off a little bit more. It's getting rid of 3 characters in each of these cases, so I'll get rid of 5. And now we're happy again. So we had 3 characters too many when I had value, and so it's fixed. Alright, so that allowed me to pull this thing apart into several pieces, and perhaps for some reason I might want to reverse this operation. I could use concatenation. There's 2 different ways I can do it. The simplest one is just to go equals the product and maybe a space and the product description and a space and the price. So now I got all the way back to what I had at the beginning. Well, although since it thinks it's a value, it actually didn't give us back the decimal points and stuff. But I guess if I wanted to fix that, I could put and dot 00, and that would work for me. Another way that I could piece everything back together is using the concatenate function, but that you can just see that in the solution that I'm going to give to you. You don't need to worry about that. Alright, so now you have some great skills that you can use on the lab that I'm going to give to you.